Let's get started with the first conversation, which has to do with health insurance. Now, over the course of the several shows that we've done in the recent past and also over the last few years, we've been telling you how important it is for you to get health insurance. You never know when you need the assistance when there is a health emergency. Now, we've spoken about various aspects that you need to bear in mind, that there are several riders that you need to be mindful of. And to speak about this in a little bit more detail, I'm joined by Amit Chhabra, who is from Policy Bazaar. Thank you so much, Amit, as always, for joining in. And, we decided that we would talk about this in a little bit more detail. And what we decided is that we'd speak about the various riders. But I think it's important from somebody's perspective who is not really familiar with health insurance at all. Let's talk about what a rider is in the first place when it comes to health insurance.
Sure. See, riders are basically additional options that one gets when you're buying a health insurance policy. So let's say you're buying, a basic health insurance policy. You can opt for riders which give you additional no claim bonus or give you hospitalization at home, or they give you, coverage for consumable items. So there is a basic health insurance policy that you buy. Along with that, you can, almost top up your policy or buy some additional riders which give you incremental coverage. It's almost like, it's almost like buying some accessories along with your basic health insurance policy, in simple layman terms. So the idea is to, by spending a bit more money, you can make your health insurance policy more comprehensive. You can add some features, you can add some benefits, based on your specific requirements. That's the usage of riders.
And in the run-up to this conversation, Amit, you'd sent me a whole list of riders that you can opt for. Let's talk about them individually and the benefits that are associated with each one. The first relates to room rent, and this is something that I think a lot of people tend to ignore when they're buying health insurance policies as well. They don't look at this number very closely. Is that your experience as well? And what are the mistakes that people make when it comes to room rent? What is the room rent waiver rider?
Yes, see, a lot of plans, and historically, about 4-5 years back, a lot of plans that health insurance plans that people used to buy, they had a room rent limit attached to the health insurance policy. What that means is that when you are getting hospitalized, the cost or the room rent cost, that is, the per day room rent cost that's allocated, there is a certain limit to that as per the health insurance policy, and it would vary by the kind of policy you have. So some health insurance policies might say that you have a 1% room rent limit, which means that if your sum insured is, let's say, 5 lakhs, then the maximum room rent that you can take per day is 1% of 5 lakhs, which is 5,000 rupees. Similarly, there would be a 2% room rent capping in some cases also. Now, the thing is, maybe 5-7 years back, that 5,000 rupee was a decent enough amount. But now what we're seeing is even at a decent hospital, the average room rent is 10,000 rupees or above. So you may end up falling short of your the room rent limit, and you may have to end up paying from your own pocket. In such a scenario, what becomes very important is, one, to be aware of what your room rent limit is, and second, at least opt for a rider which gives you a single private room as the bare minimum room rent limit. So what that means is, the suggestion to all the viewers is that when you opt for a health insurance policy through a rider, if needed, opt for at least a single private room as the minimum room rent limit as a rider in your health insurance policy. To even make it better, if you would want your hospital stay to be comfortable and and sort of luxurious for you, you can also opt for a rider which removes any room rent capping at all. So you can actually take a suite room within a hospital as well as needed, or a deluxe room or a luxury room in that case. So there is again a rider which helps you opt for no room rent capping at all, and you can just completely go away from all room rent cappings. Alternatively, if you want to save on the premium and save on the cost of the health insurance policy, you can actually degrade your health insurance room rent limit as well, and you can move to a shared room instead of a single room in case your policy has a single room capping by default. So in short, what happens in this case is, you can either reduce the price by opting for a lower room rent limit, or you can increase the price, but then in return get a better room rent capping for yourself in case a hospitalization is needed. So both these options are available through the room rent rider.
The room rent waiver, Amit, how much would it cost on an average? Does it depend on where you're claiming it? If you're buying it in a metro, is it more expensive?
Not really. The price of the entire health insurance package may vary by the city you are buying it in. But as such, the room rent waiver rider we have seen. So if you're moving from a single room to no room rent capping at all, it's about 10% extra premium. And if you're moving from a single to a shared, like a downgrade, then again it's about a 10% discount. It's about a 10% play here or there, depending upon what direction you're moving in from a room rent capping perspective.
Let's talk about the next rider that you've mentioned. You've talked about hospital cash benefit. What's this all about?
See, hospital cash or hospi cash, as it's popularly known, is basically a substitute for your loss of income that happens when you're hospitalized. So one has to think of it like this, right? The health insurance policy that you have covers for hospitalization expenses that happen. It could be the cost of the doctor, cost of treatment, cost of medication, etc. There are a lot of other expenses that also happen. Somebody is taking care of you, they have to travel every day, etc., all of that. Also, for the days that one is hospitalized, there's a loss of income that happens because you're not going to your job or your business, so you are losing salary for those days, which eventually is a loss of income that happens. So the hospi cash policy or a hospi cash rider basically covers for the loss of income that happens for the number of days that you're hospitalized. So what that means is if you have opted for this rider and let's say you've opted for 5,000 rupees per day rider, then in this case what happens is for the days you're hospitalized, you will be given 5,000 rupees cash. They will be transferred to your account directly. This is over and above the medical expenses claim that your health insurance policy gives to you. So that's over and above, and it's basically a substitute for your loss of income that is happening because you were not well at that time. You were hospitalized, and hence as a result, you lost your salary or lost your business income for that point of time. So the objective of it is to basically, almost complement the health insurance from while that covers for the medical cost, that covers for the loss of income. So it sort of covers you for the entire thing very well. That's the objective of a hospi cash policy.
Absolutely. Understood. Understood. I would think that this is more relevant to somebody who is not a salaried employee because quite a few organizations provide for quite lengthy sick leave policies, right? Having said that, let's move to the next one, which I think is very interesting in that it's something that we've spoken about separately, but it is quite important to consider maternity rider. I'm assuming that there is a certain amount of coverage that you need to have before you can claim benefits of maternity, right? How does this work?
Yes, so basically maternity, you see, in most health insurance plans, maternity is not covered by default. However, there are riders that are available which will also give you coverage for maternity benefit, for maternity events also. These typically come with a waiting period as well. So what that means is that let's say if you have let's take an example, you have a 10 lakh rupee sum insured policy which does not cover maternity by default. What can be done is that you can opt for a maternity rider and it will give you coverage of 50,000 rupees by paying an extra amount. Typically, this will have a waiting period of 2 years or 3 years. But post that, whenever a maternity event happens, the cost of that, let's say 50,000 rupees, will be reimbursed or will be provided cashless by the insurance company itself. So let's say if you are somebody who plans to start a family in the future, then one could opt for the maternity rider as well. This, as I said, is specifically important because most individual plans typically don't cover maternity benefit by default.
Understood. It's certainly something very important to consider. The next one that's listed is critical illness cover. And I think, again, this is something that people tend to overlook, right? Because there are instances, Amit, where people have reached a hospital, have been wanting to claim the benefit of a health insurance policy cover, but they found out that this particular illness is not covered underneath the ambit of the policy. So how does a critical illness cover work?
So it's slightly different actually, because most of the health insurance policies do cover for all critical illnesses also, like all of them, in fact, do cover for critical illnesses. The objective of a critical illness rider is actually different. It's similar to hospicash. It is a way to substitute the loss of income, and I'll explain this through an example. So let's say if there's a person who has a health insurance policy and unfortunately contracts cancer. So the cost of treatment will be covered through the health insurance policy, right? The cost of treatment of cancer, be it the chemotherapy, be it whatever medication is taken, whatever consultations are taken, that is all covered by the health insurance policy. However, what may mean because of cancer is that the person has lost a significant part of the daily income, because you would typically end up being out of action for 3 to 4 months if you're getting treated for cancer. So what the critical illness policy does is, the critical illness rider rather does is, it gives you a certain fixed amount on detection of a critical illness. What that means is, if let's say cancer has been detected of a certain stage, then a certain fixed amount is just paid out to the customer irrespective of whatever the treatment cost is, because the treatment cost is anyways taken care of by the health insurance policy. But this becomes a substitute to income which the customer is provided on detection of the critical illness. There's another variant of this which is now gaining popularity, in which case basically what happens is, if somebody is detected with a critical illness, then the sum insured of the medical insurance policy doubles or triples. So like, for example, if let's say I have a 10 lakh sum insured policy and I detect a critical illness, in that case, my sum insured for the treatment of that critical illness becomes, instead of 10 lakhs, it becomes 20 lakhs by default. So there's no extra premium to be paid. It automatically becomes 20 lakhs because the critical illness is detected. So there are two variants of this. One is a fixed lump sum amount paid to the customer. And second is increasing the sum insured so that the medical expenses needs can be met.
Right. And you've mentioned personal accident. I'm guessing this is similar again to what you've mentioned in the past. In the event of an accident, there is in fact a payment that is made, and you mentioned here, if the accident causes permanent or total permanent or partial disability or temporary disability, there is a compensation for loss of income. The next couple that you mentioned, Amit, are OPD cover and consumables cover. I think the second one has been spoken about a lot in terms of the COVID policies, right? So what's this all about?
Sure. So I think, and then this is very relevant in the current times. So a lot of policies don't cover for consumable items by default. And this wasn't really, very important earlier because it used to be a very small part of the total bill. But in the current times, it's become a fairly large part of the bill. And what's happening is that more and more people want coverage for consumables also when they buy the health insurance policy. So in such a scenario, what's now happening is that people opt for this rider, and it's known by different names. But essentially what it means is that if you opt for this rider, then the consumable items also start to get covered by the health insurance policy by default. So what that means is the cost of PP kits, gloves, masks, syringes, etc. All of this are also paid by the health insurance policy itself. Now, typically the cost of these is not much. It'll typically cost 5 to 7% of the health insurance premium itself. So not very expensive. But when it comes to the claim settlement, it really helps because 15 to 20% of the amount ends up being consumables, and that gets paid from the health insurance policy itself. The other one that you mentioned was OPD, which is again like an add-on policy, basically, based on which policy one is buying. So again, OPD is typically not a part of most health insurance policies by default, but what this rider allows you is, it allows you to cover OPD expenses also. Now it could vary from policy to policy. Some policies have cappings, some give unlimited OPD within network, some give unlimited tele OPD or online OPD. So varies, based on products, but essentially you get OPD coverage along with your health insurance policy by opting for this rider.
This has been a very useful conversation, I think, to a lot of people that are going to be out looking for a health insurance policy. Maybe they're looking to bolster their cover by taking a family floater. So certainly things to bear in mind. Amit, thank you so much for joining in, for taking the time.
you. Thank you.